Hello.
Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of CXO-Talk. I'm Michael Krigsman, and I am here with my co-host, Vala Afshar. And today, we are thrilled to have with us Ben Haines, who is the CIO of Pabst Blue Ribbon Beer. Vala, how are you?
I'm doing great, Michael.
Great, and we have a
Cheers.
special cheers, Pabst Blue Ribbon, and we have behind us, lined up, I don't know if you can see, a 30-pack, which naturally raises the question, does marketing at Enterasys run on beer?
And the answer to that is absolutely.
So, Ben, thank you for joining us today. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm doing really well, thanks.
And you are one of the more innovative CIOs that I know, and you seem to be working with lots of different startups and doing all kinds of different things over there.
Yeah, we're trying to move things forward, that's for sure, at a very fast pace.
So Ben, let's jump in. Tell us a little bit about Pabst and your role, and you're the CIO, and what does that actually mean at Pabst, and a little bit about your personal background. And while you're at it, maybe you can tell us a little bit about Hostess Twinkies.
Okay.
Which the audience doesn't know has some relevance here.
Yeah, so Pabst has been around forever. It's crazy, 160-odd years, PBR. And in mid-2010, it was bought by a private equity firm, Metropolis & Co. And before that, it was owned by a private non-profit trust. And, the trust ran in a very different way to most businesses, I think. And, these guys came in, and they're a couple of young guys, very, very entrepreneurial. They really wanted to move things forward, and PBR's going in leaps and bounds. And so they looked at IT, and they saw quite a few issues. It was very underinvested as well. There's especially in a private trust, I think they kind of looked at IT and went, yeah, okay, the lights are on, we're good. And so they wanted to move things forward. So they brought me in almost 2 years ago now, and went through and had a good review of IT, and it was a very, very traditional IT shop, everything stuck in a data center in San Antonio, Texas, in an office building, and that's where it all happened. And so I came in with an agenda to, move things forward and get them into a much more modern, fast, agile environment, which we've been striving towards. So it's been a very fast ride, and it's been very cool so far. So before Pabst, I spent, about 9 years with Red Bull. So, I'm following the cool brands, I have to say.
You'll be at Enterasys next.
Yes, exactly. Logical step. I worked with Red Bull, and I had a very, typical IT. I worked in the user services side and networking and system admin, and looked after Asia Pacific and South America, so I had a global responsibility as well. And then I got into the business intelligence and application space, and I saw massive change over that time, and have to say I got quite a bit jaded with IT and the IT approach. And that led to me, wanting to get out of Red Bull as well. It was a very, for such a progressive company, being held back by a department of no. I had interesting conversations because I was the business would come to me and I'd tell them how to get around IT, and I was IT. So it was, it was kind of a interesting little conflict I was dealing with. So so that's how we got here. And in the last couple of months, I've been helping bring back the Twinkie. The owners of Pabst with the Apollo Group bought Twinkies, and the company formed April 10, and we're hitting shelves in July sometime.
That's great. That's great. That's great news. It's so, so you have a company that's going through business transformation, and you come in as a CIO, and recently in a Harvard Business Post, there was a joint survey with HBR, McKinsey, Intel, and folks, I believe a 2-year study, and in that study, half the CEOs said that the CIO doesn't understand business, business needs, and they don't understand how to leverage IT and technology to help grow and transform the business. So, you come in 2010. What do you do to understand the business needs? And once you do understand the business needs, how do you change your IT strategy to align with what your stakeholders need to grow the business?
So you have to talk to a lot of people, and more importantly, you have to listen to a lot of people. And so the first couple of months was a lot of listening. And you kind of just got to let them have their say. You don't take anything personal. IT is always a good little punching bag, and it's awesome because when you're taking all that feedback and you can sit there and you can think, okay, I know how I can fix that. I know I can fix that, and it's all upside. So you don't take it personal. You just run through, what are the problems you're trying to deal with, and you've got to go end to end. So you've got to understand where's the company going. So, I sat down with the owners, I sat down with the CEOs, the president, all the VPs, and then I went out in the field and talked to the field people. What challenges were they having? And the first thing that stuck out for me, we had 85% of our people don't sit in an office. Wow. So, when you're looking at a company like that, it's, okay, so where are our services sitting? And how are we getting our services out to our people? Well, they're sitting in a data center in San Antonio on a 6 meg DSL line that everyone's trying to get over a VPN to get to their email. So you just start putting little pieces together like that. It just doesn't make sense. So what I had to do was understand where the business was going. You've got to understand, what's the profitability model of the business? How do we make money? And that's what drives us, right? So you've got to understand that, but then you've got to have a base infrastructure. And then, so we talk about CIOs. You've got to get out of the infrastructure business, and I fully believe that. But if the infrastructure is not working, you can't do all the cool things. So, and this is where the SaaS really helped us, because we moved. We had all the basic problems: Exchange falling over every week. Blackberries that most people didn't like, all that type of stuff. So I came in, and within 6 weeks, we'd moved from Exchange to Google Docs, Google Apps, and you basically free up all this, junk that's going on of mails down and all that, and suddenly you don't have to worry about it. It's done. Everyone's getting their email, and you move on. Then I put in some security tools like Okta, so we have single sign-on. I put in Box, so we're not having to jump behind a firewall to see SharePoint. So I started carving out all this technology, which we needed a good $1 million, probably more dollars, to replace just servers and networking and all that stuff in a data center. So instead of doing that, I started carving all the low-hanging fruit, and people were productive straight away. So we moved an office from Chicago to Los Angeles, our headquarters, and they had this, big rack, all these servers, everything in it. We came here. I made sure we had 2 big, internet pipes. Everyone had Google Apps for their mail, and they had Box for their file sharing, and so no one had to get on the VPN, and we're productive straight away.
So aside from, you've just been describing really the kind of efficiency arguments of the cloud, that there's less infrastructure to maintain, and it's easier to get certain kinds of things done. So I categorize that under efficiency, and also probably
operational excellence.
Yeah, operational excellence. Exactly, that's a good way to put it. What about the advantages of the cloud for running the business and helping, and you being responsive to the business needs. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So part of the strategy I put together was by using these SaaS services, I could change how IT looked as well. So instead of having headcount in system admin, and I'm sorry, system admin guys, but if you want to be a system admin, go work for a data center. Instead of having headcount there, I moved headcount to business analysts and project management. And so straight away we have a connection to the business where we can start helping them, talking through what applications we need, talking through what business intelligence we need, and you can really do that partnership. And that also helps drive a conversation at the board level. So, I established the CEO role into the president as well, and you're not there talking about how many servers I've got to buy. You're there talking about how we can implement Salesforce and save 2 to 3 hours per salesperson per week for not doing X, Y, Z, and they're all over it. And that's how you really change the conversation, I think.
But even that is still an efficiency argument. You're not fundamentally changing the nature of the roles or the nature of how the business is accomplishing its goals. You're still talking about efficiency, or am I misplacing what you're saying?
No, and there's nothing wrong with efficiency. So, we're driving efficiency in the business. There's less opportunity to change fundamentally how someone does something. And when you look at our business model, we sell to our distributors, and our distributors sell out to the retailers. So we're a sales and marketing organization, and the focus has been getting efficient and making sure that our employee base, which is our number one cost, is as efficient as possible. And so that's been a lot of the focus at the moment. We've also started working with our CMO and with our digital marketing teams, but even that is still about efficiency of tools and how the brand sites are working. And it does come back to a lot of that, because without that, we're not maximizing our resources.
Yeah, I see IT often gets a lot of blame when things go wrong, but they're not highlighted as an organization that enables success, because when things are running smoothly, you sometimes forget about the operational excellence and efficiency that innovative CIOs and their departments bring to the business. So in terms of not just working with marketing or your digital team, how do you as the CIO showcase the value that your team is bringing to PAPS? And how do you market IT as a thought leader CIO so that the CEO and the other C-suite members can really see the benefit that you're bringing to the business?
I've never really thought about how do I market IT. I kind of like to let our results speak for themselves. And, it comes back to like the sales efficiency once again. It was really driving to, how can we help our sales team be out there selling more beer? And, that's the objective. And so it really is about the results, and it's working because you start getting involved in the conversations. So when something's happening, they're saying, hey, we need Ben here to talk through this, and there's probably a technical side of this which can help them. But without that, the run rate on the board and some trust and belief that you can help, you won't even get to the table. So I don't do a lot of internal marketing, I guess. Maybe I should.
Do you attend the staff meeting of the CMO, or do you attend the sales meetings when they're talking about go to market and so on and so forth?
Yeah, no, exactly. And so I interject, and it's another thing when you're getting some success, because you're getting invited to those meetings, and a lot of it is just listening, but as long as you're there at the table, you can listen, you can start saying, you start joining the dots. And this is one role that IT really plays. We have to be across the organization. So we're sitting in conversations, and we had an example in one of our groups. They were doing something they probably shouldn't have been doing because it wasn't their skill set, but it fell in their area for some reason. And so I interjected and said, look, maybe we need to move that particular function over to the other group, and you need to partner because that's their expertise. It's a logistics type thing. And so it's not just helping with technology, and a lot of our discussions are about people process first, and then I might get to a technology. If we don't have to spend money and get to a technology, that's fine by me. We're still helping the business by talking through the people you've got and the process you have in place.
Is it fair to say, based on your first set of comments, that to earn a seat at the table, you have to demonstrate reliability and efficiency, and as long as you're not getting inundated with help desk tickets, and you have a reliable email system and collaboration system and business applications, then you have an opportunity to sit at the table. But if you have an unstable infrastructure, then all bets are off.
Yeah, because that's you'll only hear in general based on if there's an issue. So the only time someone's calling IT is when there's a problem, and you've really got to turn that on its head. And you'll always have problems. It's technology. It's annoying, but you've got to take care of those basics, and then you can get into the stuff that really helps the business. So we did little things like the business they're spitting out all these reports every month, and they were emailing them out, and it was all too big and everything. And so we saw this in a meeting, and I just sat there and said, guys, why don't give us a couple of days. Let's engineer a solution where we can actually send all those files to Box. They'll all be updated, and then you don't have to be sending emails around. You just send the link out, and everyone's done. So it's just little things like that. But if you weren't in that meeting, you can't help the conversation.
So you really are trying to be joined at the hip with folks on the business side, it sounds like.
Yeah, no, it definitely. And I want my people to also experience it. And one thing I did a few years back at Red Bull, which was awesome, and I made my entire team do it. We actually went out in the field with our sales guys, with our marketing guys. I rode in the truck for 2 days with our delivery drivers, so you can start seeing, exactly what they're dealing with day to day. Because if you're sitting in your office, you can, have your theories about what goes on, but until you're out there, you don't understand it. We were driving around in this truck, and they had this big, heavy handheld device. It was about $2,500 device, and I got talking to them. What are you really doing? And they spend 30 seconds at every stop, enter a few numbers in, and go away, and then drive off. So we were able to not engineer, but we just worked through a solution where instead of this $2,500 device, we actually gave them a $200 iPod that could do the same thing. And it was way cooler, so they had the cool factor, but it was like slim, it fit in their pocket.
That's
and
cool.
We knew you could break a couple a year and you'd still be miles ahead of this big clunky device. So it's just little things like that really help.
We've been talking about the cloud, and I know from our past conversations as well, your really significant emphasis on moving to the cloud wherever possible. What's interesting to me is that cloud, social, mobile have created a new kind of mindset that is really more open, more engaged, more transparent, and among users, especially in their attitude towards IT. So what have you seen as you've been going through this transformation about these user expectations, and how does IT evolve to meet those expectations?
Yeah, so a lot of that to me comes under the consumerization umbrella of IT, and I guess 5 years ago even we were dealing with, 10 years ago especially, a computer was really expensive. if you got a laptop, it was $4,500, $5,000, whatever. It was very exclusive. People used their work computer at home because they couldn't afford one. Now, fast forward where we are today, everyone's computer literate. They probably have multiple devices. The CEOs were walking in with their iPads nice and shiny saying, hey, hook this up for me. And IT was caught off guard. And the traditional mindset is command and control. Okay, that's our job. We've got to control everything because that's our job. Okay, and the end users aren't going to put up with that anymore. So you can think you're controlling everything, and the reality is you're not. And so you're better off to start to try and get ahead of it and start embracing it. Use the cloud solutions to minimize some of your internal costs, but also get some agility, and so you can be seen to be more responsive using those solutions, and start embracing. If you look at it, so I take the viewpoint that we're the problem. IT is the problem. It's not our consumers of technology, it's IT and how we react to what's going on. So you need to embrace it, and by embracing it, if you can, once again, get some credibility with people, provide solutions, when you really have to say no, it's actually not that big a deal to them because you have that relationship.
But in an operational, practical sense, what happens when the CIO and by extension IT adopt the attitude that says if users are dissatisfied, there's actually some, I was going to say failing, that's not quite the right term, but there's ownership that we in IT, thanks Vala, that we in IT need to own this. What does this mean for IT in a practical way?
So it means, so you mean owning the problem?
Owning the problem, yes.
Owning the problem, yeah. So you've really got to look at what are you doing and how are you doing it, and really start listening to what your business consumers of your technology are wanting to do. And so by owning it, for me it was, okay, everyone wants iPads and iPhones, and this was before PAPS even. So you have a choice. You can sit there and say no, and a previous company I was with said no. Everyone will go and get them, they'll find a way around you, and then you have unsecured information, and you really, it's bad for business. Or you can say, okay, it's obviously you need, how do we help this situation? How do we find the middle ground? So you go and find a mobile device management solution, you put it in, you set up some policies, it's actually a conversation with your human resources team, with your legal team, with your IT folks. Okay, how do we enable this so our people can be more productive and we can be confident everything's secure, and you move forward. So it's that change of that department of no. It all comes back to no, we're not doing that. And you need to change that conversation to how can we help you and get the best for the business.
So it seems like my takeaway is the way you're balancing the need for innovation from your employees and the business, and also the demand on managing costs, managing efficiency within IT. You're balancing the need for innovation and managing the other elements of the business, specifically to IT, and again in terms of cost and innovation, by collaborating more, by engaging in conversations so people better understand the constraints that may exist financially or otherwise, and also collaborating to come up with alternative solutions. Is that a fair summary of how you're balancing these challenges?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great summary, and you have to be a lot more open. And when you start talking, so bring your own device. We implemented that at PAPS pretty much from day one when I got here, and I guess I slipped it in with a funky little policy to start with, and then we worked through it, how to migrate people off. But it does come back to cost, and so I think a lot of IT people actually struggle with the real cost, and this is actually one of the downsides to SaaS in some ways, because you start showing the real cost for something. So, okay, my Salesforce implementation costs this per user, and it's this cost per year.
Right.
And you start looking at that and say, well, what value are we getting for that? And it really puts costs on an island and isolates them. Whereas in the old world, we've sunk, I don't know, $500,000 in a SAN, in our servers, we bought our licenses, we're locked in for 3 years, here's our 21% maintenance, and then let's throw on a few other things because we have capacity. So then you end up with all this, VMware spread. So what's our real cost? Well, it's kind of, about this. And then, we make something up and we scurry off. So back to the BYOD, you've got to look at your real cost. What's your cost of managing? And what's also the cost of people doing what they want to do without security around it.
Right. And are you tasked with determining operational or opportunity cost, and what's the ROI of bringing a new, whether it's a SaaS application or otherwise, to improving efficiency and productivity and growing top-line revenue or increasing the profitability of the business? Or is it okay, yeah.
Well, it's a joint effort. So when we looked at this Salesforce solution, it's a pretty easy conversation when you sit down with the VP of sales and say, look, what's the value of your salespeople not having to be in the office for half a day to create reports every week? Right. It's an absolute no-brainer. And you get that to our executive team, and everyone's like, okay, and that's conservative.
Right.
So it's got to be a partnership. You have to be partnering. If they don't see the business value, then maybe you've got your calculations wrong. But you really have to partner with
right.
your peers and
what about inside IT? What kind of changes does this, when you shift technologies, as you're describing, from on-premise to cloud, what does this do to IT itself?
Scares the out of them.
What was that? What was that?
I think it broke up a little bit. I lost you for a second there. It's fear of change is everywhere. And when a team, I inherited a team here that had, 10-year plus tenure, a lot of them, and keeping the lights on. So day one, I walked in and basically laid out, this is where we're heading. This is the opportunities I see. And it was kind of get on board or we'll have a discussion. And I think as long as you're very clear, and the fear, obviously scared the out of them, but once they process that and once we had the dialogue, and some people jump on very quickly, some will never. And this is the big issue. I think people have to realize that some people don't want to work like this, and that's okay. But that's where we're going, so sorry, let's have a conversation. But majority of people will jump on board, and the first thing is job security. So, for example, my Exchange administrator who's like, well, what am I going to do now? He spends literally half his day with this stupid email system, making sure email works, because that's what Exchange takes. So his initial response was, okay. So then I just laid it out and said, all right, well, so we're gonna allow iPhones. You need to know mobile device management. We're gonna set up Okta for security. So I'm gonna need you to learn that. Then just laid it all out for him. He's like, oh, okay, that sounds pretty cool. And I said, yeah, it is. It's a lot more interesting than watching email go across the server and make sure it doesn't, fail. And you'll have to be a Google Apps admin, but that will be 5 minutes a month. So, there's not going to be a lot there, but you get to learn about it. So, a lot of discussion. So I had to talk to all my team, and some took a bit more convincing than others.
Right.
But, the defining moment with one of my guys, I literally, it was November last year, we removed 12,000 pounds of equipment from our data center. So we'd moved everything, and I had to move to a hybrid cloud environment. We moved to Rackspace. So I set up basically a VMware environment for my legacy that I couldn't get out to the cloud, and then a public cloud for our websites. But yeah, 12,000 pounds of equipment, and it was one of the best days I've had. Actually, it was tiring, but I literally unbolted every server I could, and like had a lot of fun. And by the time we got all this out, the guys, the system admin, he's like, "Wow, I can actually see this finally working now." And it took me a year to get him there, but and he's loving life now. So
That's awesome.
So yeah, you've got to have a lot of conversations.
Right.
Be very clear where you're going. If you're not sincere with your people, you do more damage.
Right. So my takeaway is that to go from department of no to department of yes, or at least department of let's have a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to really have sometimes tough conversations, be open-minded, be collaborative, but more importantly, it starts from the leadership. And you set the tone, and like you said, if there's a difference of philosophy, or if you don't have a cultural fit, it's more than just retooling. You may have to think about a different team to deliver the vision that you have. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's fair. The one thing you said there, I think a lot of people misconstrue, is you don't go from a department of no to the department of yes.
Right.
Because that is anarchy. And both sides are bad. So yeah, it really is about how can we help you in a responsible way for our business that makes sense for everyone.
You're just not defaulting to no as the as the first answer. So that's important. Now, you're a social CIO, and what I mean by that is, you're on social media. You're certainly a collaborative CIO, and you're available. You're accessible. So, how important? First of all, why are you a social CIO? And I get a sense, based on all of the discussions we've had already about conversations and collaborating, that's an important element of staying relevant, informed, and a value to the business. But why Twitter, for example? Why social media? And we actually have questions from Twitter in terms of how social is PAPS and your team.
And aside from the fact that you make beer, so how could you not be a social CIO?
I guess it's impossible not to be social at PAPS. But no, seriously, you're definitely, you're one of the most social CIOs in the world based on your activities. So why is that?
Yeah, so it all started just with an interest in this Twitter thing, right? So I think it was back in 2007 I got on. I can't recall. Wow. So it's a general interest in technology and what's going on in the digital space and all of that. So, I was a typical, I think I looked back at there was a way to look at your tweets, and I looked at my very first tweet, and I think it was something stupid like I fell asleep on the couch or something like that. So, I was just testing, kicking the tires, right? Then it took me a few years where I was just really watching and looking. And then I started noticing that the access to people and the thought leaders that you can get to and interact with, and it's really, really powerful. And I feel a little guilty in some ways because I just want to consume as much as I can from it. It's all about what can I learn at the moment, but making contacts with people you'd never make. And I think I probably met Mike through Twitter.
We met through Twitter, absolutely.
Yeah. I met Ray Wang, who's been very influential and amazing thought leader in this space. Nanshad as well, actually. So there's just amazing connections, and you can go to there's so many user conferences and all of that, right. But it's it's an intense environment. Everyone wants a piece of you, so it's a little different type of networking. This is on your own time. If you get into a good conversation, cool. But yeah, it really is about learning for me and getting access to people that I just normally wouldn't get access to.
That's great.
You're a big supporter of startups, and I know Vala is the same. Vala works with a number of startups, and you do. And I've been advising enterprise startups on marketing and positioning strategy, so we all really support the startup community. Are there any interesting startups, enterprise startups that you're working with that you want to take a moment to highlight?
Yeah, there's one that is really cool that I can't talk about. They're still in stealth, but they're doing some amazing things in the data space.
Uh-huh.
And there's a couple of things I look at. One is the definite. You've got to look at the life cycle of the startup and where they are in that. And so, there's definition of everyone just thinks everyone's a startup. If you're 7 years in, you're round D, are you still a startup? I mean, technically, yes, but that's very, very mature. So you look at the risk and you're like, okay, that's a pretty good bet. This other one that I'm in with Stealth, they're building this thing as we go, and it's really cool because you get a very low entry price, but you can actually, more importantly, help shape and build a product and guide them with what is the real business problem we have that an existing tool doesn't help us with. So for me, it's almost like a mini R&D exercise with money that actually gives us more benefit that I would find hard to justify or even staff internally. So it's really cool way to augment your budget, I think. And you got to live with a bit of risk, but people always argue that there's a lot of risk there, but if you go with the big boys like IBM or someone like that, they just drop products and say, yeah, we're done with that. So it can be the same thing just because they're big. So it's good fun.
As somebody who has written a lot about IT failures, I can assure you that going with big companies does not eliminate the risk. It's a different kind of risk, but there's absolutely risk there. And that risk tends to have more zeros after it, by the way.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So we talked about startups, and you mentioned some companies, like Okta and Box. What are some of the vendors? What are some of the companies that are providing real valuable technology? And it's funny, the companies you mentioned, we use that in Terrasis. But so there's a definite alignment in where we see value in SaaS cloud providers and other technology providers. So if you can name a few, and not just because of their technology, because that's important, but also their company culture, their responsiveness to you as a customer. Are they social, as an example? Because I'm starting to look at vendors, and I'm starting to judge, and really, because I think social reveals their culture, whether they're a good fit for our business. So who are some of the companies that you would recommend?
Yeah, so I guess you named the big ones we're using right now. We're looking. We're doing a few things with Tidemark, and they're a very, very interesting business performance management package. And it's really important with any startup that you do have a look at the founders and, what's their street cred, how social are they? And Christian at Tidemark, he's out there. He's on his blogs. You can see what he's doing, where he's heading, what he's thinking. So it's very, very transparent. It's very cool. So that's one that we're doing some work with. DocuSign is another one we use here. Once again, very cool. Getting that end-to-end electronic solution in place. We just started with JobVite for our recruiting. And this is the thing with any solution, the SaaS providers, they're so quick to get things going. And if you can and you should take what they offer as in the standard package, it's really, really cool because you just get it so fast. And we had the situation at Hostess actually where, the company started with no employees back in April. So the first panic call I get is we need a recruiting system. And the same with Okta. I was like, all right, I could see this blowing up. Okta and Box and JobVite, these guys turned things on within 24 hours for us. We got it integrated into AD, and you're up and running. And it's really cool as a technology provider to say, yeah, here's your solution, and we're running with it. So
So a question from Twitter: are you judging vendors by how social they are?
Yes,
Wow.
I do look, because once again, it gives you an insight into what they're doing and what they're thinking. I think a lot of companies, though, are still really struggling with how to use the solution, and it's a lot of people still think it's a broadcast mechanism. I think that's probably the best way to put it, right? It's just another channel to make an announcement. They're not really engaging in conversations. And I think right now it's not a deal breaker. It's just another little thing you look at to say, okay, well, that's kind of where they're at. And the thing with startup as well is, like the one in Stealth, they're not doing any marketing. So, no one knows about them yet. Right. So, yeah, but no, it's a really good indicator for sure.
So as we only have a couple of minutes left, as we close out, can you offer some advice to companies who want to work with firms like Pabst? What's the gate? What, Vala brought up, do you look for social? What else do you look for?
Be quite frank, don't send in the salesman with a lot of BS.
So no salesman for you.
Yeah, it's these days you need to be very knowledgeable about what you're looking at, and you can do so much research these days, where I've had vendors come into me and I'm basically telling them about their product. And the sales guys, all right, because you can, and this was actually a few years back in the IBM space when we were a big IBM shop at Red Bull, and we had to go deep on everything. And you're just wasting my time. If I can read it on the web, don't bother coming in to talk to me about it. So you need to show me how you're going to add value, and how you're really going to help me solve my problems. And by the way, I'm not going to spend that much time telling you about my problems either. So that I get emails and phone. I don't answer my phone these days. My office phone, I don't answer it, because 99% of the calls are, I'd like to know what your IT strategy is and how we can help you. And I just delete that, because it's out on the web. You go search Paps and me, you can see what my IT strategy is, right? If you haven't done your research, why the hell should I spend any time talking to you?
Wow.
So that's kind of...
It's amazing. A few weeks ago, we had Kim Stevenson, CIO at Intel, and almost verbatim.
Yes.
Almost verbatim. Like,
That's one I haven't watched yet. I need to watch Kim and Dion.
Yeah. No, but it's and I think I hear our own CIO say this, that as a vendor, you come in there and ask for CIO strategy when you're prolific bloggers and you're tweeting and you're speaking at events. If you're not taking the time to research the needs of the CIO and the business that you're pitching to, you're out of the game. So that's brilliant advice.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing, and this isn't set up at all, but I didn't know about you guys, as in Enterasys, until I saw it in the digital space. And I've only investigated your products because of the relationships I've seen and the people involved, and then I'm like, okay, so what is this stuff they're selling? And and then I get to it, it's like, oh, this is really cool. But it really was that social presence that got me interested into looking at what you guys are doing. And when your team came in, it was a demo. It was like, yeah, this is how we can help you. We can go end to end, the whole product. It's very cool.
That's great.
So there is that social component which creates a background context and a background foundation of knowledge and then trust, so that when there's a deeper connection, you already know what you're getting into, and they know about you. Well, by the time they get through the door, they already know about you, because otherwise they're not getting through the door.
Right.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I'm not going to waste an hour of my time getting you up to speed on on things you should know.
Great.
That's
well,
excellent advice.
I wish we could continue this conversation for longer. Time really flies.
Yeah, it does actually.
But we can't because it's the end of CXO-Talk, and it's time for...
Yes, these are cold, by the way.
I've got my 32 ounce beer here.
All right.
Oh, size does matter, I guess.
Well, I'm Michael Krigsman, and today my co-host Vala Afshar and I have been talking with the CIO of Pabst Beers, Ben Haines. And Ben, thank you so much for joining us today. We have learned a lot, and I hope you'll come back sometime.
Absolutely.
Excellent, guys. Great chatting. Thank you.
All right.
Great.
Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you again, same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ben.